At 80-44, the Giants have the best record in the major leagues. We talked the other day about how they did it from a team perspective, and today we're going to look at the individual performers that make that up, from Buster Posey and Brandon Crawford to newcomers like Lamotte Wade Jr. So all of that coming up on today's Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants Baseball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. So yeah, as I said, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the individual performers who have made up the San Francisco Giants, who are 80-44. The other day, we talked about how, we looked at the numbers for the team at the 3/4 mark of the season. And I kind of intended to get into the individual players who made that up instead of just looking at like, oh, this is their team on base percentage. This is their team isolated power. We never actually got to talking about the individual players themselves. So I thought that today we would do that, particularly in lieu of the fact that last night, Ryan Finkelstein and I recorded a crossover to preview this upcoming series against the Mets. Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets. And I was having connection issues as we are now recording this on, for YouTube. So for those of you who don't know, these shows are now available on YouTube. The channel is Locked On Giants, of course, and there's a football one, but obviously we're the baseball one. So we had connection issues, so I'm working out some technical difficulties as we get that set up. But so, there was too much glitching, so therefore we're going to go right into today's show is going to be looking at those individual performers, like I said. The first thing I want to do, though, is kind of just look at where the Giants are in the standings, because things have changed a little bit, and actually things have changed in a way that we have been talking about for a while when talking about the Cincinnati Reds. I got some pushback every time I've been mentioning the Reds. People are like, why are you talking about the Reds? I don't think they're going to do anything. Well, guess what? The Reds are now in that second wild card position. So if the Giants were to fall out of first place, which, let's be realistic, it's a possibility that that could happen. If the Giants were to become one of the wildcard teams, they would be looking right now at an opponent of the Cincinnati Reds, not the San Diego Padres. The Padres had held on to that position for a long time, but they have fallen out of it unbelievably, right? Like coming into the year, everyone was so focused on the Dodgers and Padres, and the Padres would finally be the team that challenges the Dodgers in the NL West. But no, it's been the Giants in first place, and the Padres have fallen out of playoff position at 68 and 58. So the Giants have a 13-game lead over the Padres, so that's essentially their lead on a playoff spot. Giants have a 2.5-game lead over the Dodgers. The Reds have a 1-game lead over the Padres. And so this 13-game lead on a playoff spot for the Giants is why Fangraphs has their playoff odds now at 100.0%. That doesn't mean it's actually 100%. Obviously, there's still a chance the Giants could miss the postseason, but it's rounded up. If it's, I think, 99.5 or higher, they're going to write 100.0% because it's rounding. So anyway, just wanted to give you a quick, I wanted to mention that quickly because it's been a while since we've kind of touched base on that. But without further delay, let's jump right into what I was saying we were going to do, which is looking at the individual performers who make up these numbers, team numbers for the Giants. So just to give a refresher, Giants have a 113 weighted runs created plus as an offense, not counting pitchers. If you know me, you know I'm passionate about not counting pitchers when we're looking at team offense. So that 113 weighted runs created plus is third best in the major leagues, behind only the Astros and the Dodgers. But let's look at the individual performers. So in terms of hitting, no, first of all, let's look at wins above replacement leaders for the Giants. I don't know if it's a surprise to you or not, but there are two players who have been far and away the Giants' best two position players. And those two players, I'll give you a second to guess if you want to. I think most of you know it's Brandon Crawford and Buster Posey. They've kind of been in lockstep in terms of their value all season long. Both are around 4 wins above replacement, which is very good with a month plus remaining. They could easily get up to around 5, which is, it's not quite like necessarily MVP level performance. You're going to get some people who are, 6, 7, 8 in a given year, but very few. 5 is a star level type of production. And both being around 4, that has so much to do with how the Giants have been able to be successful. But also, what has to do with that is that up and down the roster, they're just getting value left and right. So I think what may surprise a lot of people, if we're talking about, excuse me, Fangraphs wins above replacement, the number 3 position player on the Giants behind Posey and Crawford is, guess who? Darren Ruff at 2.0 wins above replacement. And right behind him, guess who? Steven Duggar. So that's a little bit surprising. If you want to, win some bets with your friends, you can talk about who is third and fourth on the 2021 first place best in MLB Giants position player wins above replacement, that it's Darren Ruff and Steven Duggar. So a lot of that has to do with Evan Longoria missed a lot of time. Brandon Belt missed a lot of time. Lamotte Wade Jr. hasn't played all that often because he didn't start the year with the team. Mike Yastrzemski has had a down year by his standards. But, so wins above replacement, I say this every time, but it's not a number that's indisputable like home run totals, right? If you have 19 home runs, you have 19 home runs, and there's really no debating that. But wins above replacement is kind of a calculation that these websites formulate themselves. So it's not indisputable. And when we're talking about, oh, Darren Ruff has 2.0, Steven Duggar 1.9, Evan Longoria 1.8. There's no way that you can say definitively that Darren Ruff has been 1/10 of a win above replacement better than Steven Duggar and 2/10 better than Evan Longoria. So when it's that close, they've been about the same value. And the thing that's important to note with wins above replacement is that it's incorporating offense, defense, and base running into that final calculation. So a guy like Ruff, more of it is coming from his offense and less from his defense and base running. A guy like Steven Duggar, less from the offense, more from the base running and defense. But add it all up and the totals are similar. So coming up next, we'll continue to look through this, and we'll look at the starters and the relievers. We'll look at who have been the best defensive players on the Giants. We'll just kind of take a broad look as we're, obviously deep into the season at this point, and we will evaluate all of that. So that's all coming up next. But first, it's that time of year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including the online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. Be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo. make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up using the promo code NFL100. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. All right, as promised, we are going to continue to look at these overall numbers. There's too many players to even go through one by one. The Giants have used 23 position players this season. Sky Bolt has 1 plate appearance. I'm looking at the players who have the fewest amount of plate appearances. Joey Bart has 6 plate appearances. Jalen Davis, 9. Chadwick Tromp 17, but everyone else has played a lot. The next closest is Chris Bryant at only 79 plate appearances for the Giants, and then Jason Vossler has 80 plate appearances for the Giants. It's telling that Jason Vossler and Mauricio Dubon have been the least productive position players for the Giants. And both of those guys are interesting players who have, it's hard to say they've added value because this negative wins above replacement number kind of suggests that a, average replacement level type of player would have provided better value. But Jason Vossler had some big hits. Mauricio Dubon really struggled and is now in AAA. They actually are both in AAA. But just looking through, I'm going to try to point out any more interesting players. Brandon Belt has been quite productive when he's been on the field. Same with Evan Longoria. Mike Yastrzemski, we mentioned that he's having a down season by his standards. At some point, like a week ago, we talked at length about Mike Yastrzemski's struggles this season and that I was actually concerned about him for the first time. It's obviously not a small sample anymore. We're 400 plus plate appearances into the 2021 season. And we're looking at, for Yastremski, he's been 5% above average offensively. So right around league average. He's been a good base runner. He's been a good corner outfielder. But overall, just a 309 on base percentage, a 220 batting average. He's been good still against right-handed pitching, but the production has really fallen off this year against left-handed pitching. I don't read too much into single season platoon splits because we're dealing in the land of small samples when we do that. But, Yastremski has lost playing time against left-handed pitching, and I think that that's appropriate given the struggles that he's had. And also the other day against a right-handed pitcher, he was batting 9th in the lineup with the DH, obviously no pitcher spot. So we'll see. The Giants are facing another righty tonight in New York, and we'll see where Yastremski goes. But yeah, 220 average, 309 on base, 454 slugging. That's a 234 isolated power, which is really good. So that's like what's keeping Yastremski as an above average player right now, despite below average, on base numbers, is that when he's getting his hits, he's continuing to hit for power. And yeah, he has 19 home runs on the season. And he just, 19 home runs and also lots of doubles, I presume. It's not right in front of me, but that's what that isolated power number means. So looking at Lamotte Wade Jr., he has been quite good, about as valuable as Yastremski, but in about 33 fewer games and almost 200 fewer plate appearances. So more valuable than Yastremski on a per plate appearance basis, if that makes sense. Wade Jr. has been 24% above average by weighted runs created plus, which is a park adjusted number, by the way. So playing at Coors Field is going to, you may have a great slash line, but it's going to ding you a little bit for getting to play at such a lively offensive environment. But Wade Jr. is hitting 248 with a 320 on base. Neither of those numbers jumps off the page, but the power numbers do. A 523 slugging percentage, which comes out to a 275 isolated power, which is just fantastic. League average is around 165. So, being up 100 points above that and close to 300 in isolated power, that's going to put you among the very, very best in the game. And that's what Lamotte Wade Jr. has been able to do, which is so impressive because when he came to the Giants, the big question was, is he ever going to hit for power? Because the approach was so sound and the on base skills, the contact skills were so sound in his minor league career and in his brief major league career with the Twins. The question was, can he hit for power? And if he does, he could be really good. And my goodness, has he hit for power? And I'm inclined to give credit again to the Giants hitting coaches, Donnie Ecker, Justin Veely, and Dustin Lind, who have been able to do this with not just Wade Jr., but several players. Like when we look at the resurgent careers of Brandon Crawford and Buster Posey, who we talked about first, a lot of it has to do with improved offense and specifically improved power. And up and down this roster, they've been able to get power out of their players, which is not something to take for granted. I mean, this Giants team for a long time, that was what they didn't have. They lacked guys who were able to hit the ball out of the ballpark pretty much ever since Barry Bonds left. Obviously, they had some success despite that in the early part of the decade, but as teams like the Dodgers just started being more and more powerful, Giants just weren't able to keep up. But at this point, they lead the major leagues in home runs despite having a pitcher in their lineup. So when you compare that number to AL teams, the AL teams have the advantage, and yet the Giants have still been able to lead the major leagues. It's like Giants have 8 players capable of hitting home runs in their lineup on a given night. The ninth being the pitcher, I'm sure they don't have any home runs by their pitchers this year. But AL teams have 9 guys who can hit home runs. So the Giants leading the league is even more impressive when you take that into account. So that took up a long time. There's there's other players we can look at. Decent seasons from Solano, Flores. Casali has had a nice rebound after a slow start. Decent season from Slater. Kind of disappointing, to be honest. Disappointing/decent season for Alex Dickerson. I mean, we've been so hard on Dickerson, but he's actually been above average offensively by weighted runs created plus and right around the same as Mike Yastrzemski. So that's a little bit hard to believe, but the numbers don't lie. I mean, they have almost the same on base percentage. Dickerson at 307, Yastremski at 309, and the isolated power for Dickerson is 202 and it's 234 for Yastremski. So, slightly better for Yastremski, but they've actually been pretty similar. Also, it's been a disappointing first season in San Francisco for Tommy La Stella. A lot of that has had to do with injuries, but he missed a good portion of the season with an injury. But when he's been on the field, he's still yet to really get it going, and hopefully, in the not too distant future, we can see that come out. So coming up next, we will look at, like I said, the pitchers and the defense and the relievers. We'll have to go a little bit faster, but that's all coming up next. But first, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure the often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning, is your Odyssey an LX or EX? And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money with Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the exact same auto parts at a chain store or car dealership? Seriously, there's really no reason to do this. If you know the part you need, you can get your car diagnosed at one of those places. But then if they tell you the part that you need, which they will, you can just order it yourself and save a bunch of money with rockauto.com. And if you want the dealership to install it, that's fine, but they're going to charge you more for the part. So visit rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. This episode is brought to you by Green Room. Green Room is the first social audio platform made for sports fans. The app is free to download, and once you're in, you can chat with me, other fans, athletes, and insiders in real time about your favorite team or sport. I'll be hosting rooms for Locked On Giants once a week. That's right, you can finally join in on the conversation you listen to here every day. Green Room is a perfect place to start or join conversations about the league. You'll find fans just like you on Green Room for watch parties, debates, post-game breakdowns, and of course, reacting to big news or rumors. You'll have the chance to chat with me and might even have a chance to be featured on the Locked On Giants podcast through our Green Room conversations. Be sure to join me this Sunday. I'll be hosting a room towards the end of the game, as I do every week. Go download the free Green Room app now, currently available on all iOS devices. Be sure to create a profile, link your Twitter, and join the MLB group for the latest league updates. Follow me at Ben Kaspick to be notified when my room goes live. I know you won't want to miss it. I'm planning to be live on Sunday towards the end of the game, and I can't wait to hear everyone's thoughts on the Giants, so I'll see you there. Green Room, changing the way we talk sports. All right, as promised, we're going to wrap up this conversation talking about the specific players behind the Giants' MLB-best 80 and 44 record. So I just briefly want to look at their leaders in defense and base running. Number 1 and 2, it's no surprise, Buster Posey and Brandon Crawford have been the most valuable defenders for the Giants, followed by Steven Duggar and actually Curt Casali coming in next. So he's been a great defender when he's been on the field, which has been limited playing time. So that's pretty impressive. Mike Tauchman also getting some love from Fangraph's defensive metric, which is defensive runs above average. I see a lot of people refer to this, like if you go to Fangraphs and look at a player page, then you see the DEF next to WAR. People refer to this as defensive WAR, but it's not. It's defensive runs above average. And it's taking, position into account, and it is making this number, runs above average. And actually, as I look at it, Mike Yastrzemski coming in last. And so this is a moment where we can talk about the fact that these numbers are not so reliable in single season samples. It usually takes like 3 seasons is the convention to look at these numbers and get a solid evaluation. The fact that Yastremski is negative 6.4 here, again, it's not defensive WAR. That wouldn't make any sense. 6.4 wins negative. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's defensive runs above average, and I don't completely understand. They make a positional adjustment, so if you're a great defensive first baseman, you still might be around 0 for the value you're providing in terms of runs above average here, versus if you're a decent shortstop, you might have the same defensive value. So it's kind of making that calculation that a decent shortstop is just as valuable defensively as a good defensive first baseman, because certain positions it's more valuable to have better defense. I hope that makes sense, but the fact that Yastremski plays corner outfield and plays it well, I'm a little confused as to why this number is so very negative at negative 6.4, because the numbers that Fangraphs uses to make this calculation have him as a good defender. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. So we'll just ignore it and move on to the pitchers. At a later date, if you want clarification, I will be able to provide that. But let's look at the Giants' starting pitchers to start. They have had 10 players make starts. A few of them have been openers, like Zach Littell has a start, actually 2 starts. Scott Kazmir has 2 starts. Connor Menez has a start. Sammy Long has 4 starts, and he's going to start again tonight. Aaron Sanchez has 7 starts. So those players are kind of out of the equation, except not Sammy Long, because he's going to start tonight. But the Giants' number 1 pitcher, it shouldn't surprise anyone, or it might, because we've seen the emergence of Logan Webb. But the Giants' number 1 starting pitcher has been Kevin Gausman at 3.8 Fangraphs wins above replacement. So he's basically continued what he was able to start last season, and we know he's had the struggles recently, but overall in the season, I mean, he's got a 2.47 ERA, 3.34 expected ERA, 2.88 fielding independent pitching. And that fielding independent pitching number is what Fangraphs uses in its WAR calculation. So number 2 on this list is Logan Webb at 2.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement. The reason he's so far behind Gausman is that Gausman has thrown significantly more innings, about 50 more innings. Logan Webb at 97 and a third, Kevin Gausman at 146. So obviously providing, solid innings, it matters how many you throw. And so Logan Webb missed some time, and that is why he's had that he had a shoulder issue, a couple of different IL stints with that. He's been great. He just hasn't pitched as much. But Logan Webb has a 2.87 ERA, 3.12 fielding independent pitching. Just numbers are really good across the board. And what he's done really, really well in is getting ground balls. He's close to the league lead in ground ball percentage and average launch angle against him. He's in the negative department in average launch angle against him, which is really incredible. On average, guys are just hitting the ball into the ground, which, it's tough to do a lot of damage when you're only hitting ground balls. So, Anthony DeSclafani comes in next, closely followed by Alex Wood, who's thrown about 12 fewer innings, but those two have both been good. I mean, it's interesting though. DeSclafani has a 3.26 ERA versus 4.11 for Wood. So by that, it's hard to say that they've been about the same, but it's fielding independent pitching. They are both similar. DeSclafani at 3.81, Alex Wood at 3.92. But if we're going by ERA, Anthony DeSclafani has been significantly better, which is why it hurts that he's currently on the IL. Johnny Cueto comes in fifth. He's been decent. I mean, the 3.89 ERA is better than Alex Wood, but the fielding independent pitching much worse at 4.76. Sammy Long, who goes tonight, 5.82 ERA. And actually, as I just need to clarify, I've been looking at expected ERA instead of fielding independent pitching. So all those fielding independent pitching numbers I just told you, those are actually expected ERA, if anyone really cares. So anyway, we need to move on to the relievers. Best reliever on the Giants by wins above replacement, again, which is based on fielding independent pitching, is Jake McGee, who has a 2.68 ERA, 2.91 expected ERA, 3.19 fielding independent pitching. He's just been fantastic on the whole. There's definitely been some blown saves at times. He has emerged as the main ninth inning guy for the Giants, with Tyler Rogers taking on that eighth inning, and Rogers has also been great at a 1.95 ERA. The thing is, relievers are not going to be perfect, and so I see people kind of freaking out like the Giants have bullpen issues. Well, if the Giants have bullpen issues, then everybody has bullpen issues. They're not perfect. They're going to give up runs sometimes, and when you're clinging to like a one-run lead, then of course, if they give up runs sometimes, and they give up a couple runs in an inning and blow a game, then that's just normal. That's just a normal part of the game. Every pitcher gives up runs. So Jose Alvarez has a 2.19 ERA, has just been so steady and reliable. And people wanted this guy off the team early on when he was struggling, but he has completely turned it around and is having just a great year. Dominic Leon has been fantastic with the Giants, 1.57 ERA, 2.80 expected ERA. Tony Watson has yet to allow a run in 9 innings with the Giants. Zach Littell has been really good with a 2.08 ERA out of the pen. Some of the bad relievers for the Giants are no longer with the team. Gregory Santos, Camilo Doval, Sam Selman, Tyler Chatwood, I think he's actually still here. Scott Kazmir in 1 inning out of the pen. So that's the thing, is they've had a lot of turnover in the bullpen. So they have really good season numbers, but even so, the season numbers with the guys who are currently on that roster in the bullpen are even better. So the Giants have kind of a makeshift bullpen, but it's been extremely effective in 2021. So that is all the time we have for today. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk about this first game in New York with the Giants taking on the Mets. It's going to be Sammy Long on the mound for the Giants. So buckle up. I don't know exactly what you're going to get out of Sammy Long, and we're probably going to need to see that bullpen step in and cover a lot of innings. Last time Sammy Long made a start, he only went, I think, 2 innings, even though he was throwing the ball pretty well. So we'll be back tomorrow talking about everything, any transactions that happen, and then the game itself. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. You can follow me on Twitter at Ben Kaspick. That's Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review or liking on YouTube and subscribing and commenting, all of that fun stuff. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. Anyway, I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.